one of the products that we use is
Ashwagandha,
Ashwagandha.
and just simple Ashwagandha. People wondering, it sort of comes from the Asia and Africa. It has within it these things called withanolides. You go into a colder environment than your body's used to, and many times the water in these cases is somewhere between like 55 and about 69 degrees, so it's cold. When you get out of that, your vessels then dilate and pushes the blood immediately out, and the idea behind it is it improves healing. Sort of have some help eating out. Is it possible to eat healthy?
Yes, well, number one, I just tell people, be the boss. When you go to a restaurant, be the boss. No bread, avoid the extra oils, avoid the extra sugars, and avoid all the extra sugars.
When you hear the term ashwagandha, do you think it's a country? Do you think it's a foreign language? For those of you that have that spiritual twist, do you think I'm speaking in tongues? Ashwagandha. No, actually, it's kind of a wild thing because it's an adaptogenic herb, and it comes from the ground, which is a source of healing for many people because we believe that the nutrients in the ground actually provide a lot of benefits for the body. But did you know it can help you with stress and sleep and things that can really help you be calm? Ashwagandha is really an interesting herb, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And the last 4 years, probably starting in about 2020, we saw more people having issues with anxiety, stress, and sleep disorders. And this herb has been one of the ones that we have actually utilized in a lot of clinical situations to get people back on track. Now, one of the products that we use is
Ashwagandha, and just simple Ashwagandha. People wondering, it sort of comes from the Asia and Africa. It has within it these things called withanolides. Big old word, but those
Say that one more time.
Withanolides.
Tongue twister.
Withanolides, and so those things that are in there, they actually help bring calm to the system. And we talk about adaptogenic herbs. I like the term adaptogenic because they have the ability to adapt. In other words, they can help you be more calm, or they could help you be a little more aware, depending on what you might need.
So that's very curious. When we think about the dysfunction of stress and anxiety or insomnia, what has happened is an imbalance in this thing called the autonomic nervous system. And we tend to lean more towards to the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight, run and flee, instead of being able to rest and relax. And ashwagandha, being an aid, comes to the rescue and kind of puts the teeter-totter back in balance and level.
When we talk about a pendulum swinging back and forth, that pendulum swinging back and forth, I want you to think about a swing set, that's at the top end on the apex on both sides. There's no calm there. That's where most people live. They live all wound up all the time, and they can't calm down. And over the course of time, that can wear the system down. And obviously, we've talked previously to some behavioral modification and breathing things, and people need to go back and listen to those shows again. That's important. But when we talk about bringing in natural substances, and we're not talking about antidepressants, we're not talking about things that will hurt you, we're not talking about things that can have any negative effect to speak of. Well, let me talk about some contraindications potentially. But we're talking about things that can help you bring that pendulum back into a little more calm so that you're not pinging at the end of those spectrums all the time.
Yes. Well, speaking of contraindications, of course, ashwagandha has not been well studied in pregnancy. So if you are brewing a bun in the oven or baking a baby, it's probably best not to take ashwagandha.
Did you just say bun in the oven?
Bun in the oven.
Oh my gosh, that was funny.
Brewing a baby.
Yeah.
Also, if you have hypothyroid disorders or dysfunctions, you might want to talk to your doctor before you put something like this on board. It also can interact with certain medications like blood pressure medications, seizure medications, thyroid medications, and the like. So being very educated before you just pop some ashwagandha is going to be a smart thing. Interestingly enough, ashwagandha does improve the function of the endocrine system. Like we talked about how it can aid in balancing the autonomic nervous system, ashwagandha can increase the level of certain androgens in the system, one of those being testosterone. So you may want to have your levels tested before you start ashwagandha, and then 6 to 8 weeks into taking it to make sure you're not spilling that meter over the top and getting too high.
Now, before people are out there and you're going, okay, I'm going to take ashwagandha and drive my testosterone to the roof. I can hear you guys doing that right now. Hold the line a minute. So let's think through this. We don't produce good testosterone, doesn't matter who you are, when we're under a high amount of stress, because the system is too wound up. When the system is wound up like that, we're not supposed to be reproducing because we're being chased by a bear. To stop on the side of the trail and try to have sex is probably not a good idea if you're being chased by a bear. So ashwagandha does not directly make testosterone. It calms the system so that the body can create more of the testosterone. So before you start going into this cause and effect, we need to understand the relationship of both.
It's a balance. We
That's
are
right.
bringing the body in balance so that it can innately do what it is supposed to do. What is that supplement one more time?
It's called bio-ashwagandha, and people can take that during the day.
Once a day, twice a day, at night.
I've done it both.
Both.
I know people that chronically live stressed out, depending on where you are, get with a clinician to help you sort of work that out. The whole system in which we live is very individualized and personalized based upon your own environment, both emotionally, spiritually, and even physically. So it can be taken during the day. It can be taken at night. It's the easy, low-hanging fruit is take it when you're most stressed out. So again, the one that we like is bio-ashwagandha. And then certainly there's other things that we can do to help with this idea, but understanding all these herbs, all these adaptogenics is really, really important. And that's what we excel in, and that's what we study on all the time. So hope this helped you. Hope it was a little cool educational piece to know that ashwagandha is not a country. No, it's an adaptogenic herb that can help you.
Coming up next, ice plunge baths and the cold benefits.
But is it good for you? Find out next.
Our flagship product is called Kingdom Fuel. Tell us a little bit about Kingdom Fuel and why it's so good.
We saw people struggling with the idea and concept of it's too expensive to eat healthy. So we thought, okay, that's the problem. Let's find a solution. So we found a solution for $5 or under per meal. And that represented the birth of the idea of Kingdom Fuel. So Kingdom Fuel is organic pea protein. It's got greens and reds in it. So this is the phytonutrients from green plants and red plants that we all talk about. Eat your vegetables, right? It's also got vitamins and minerals in it. So it's got a complete complex of that. And it's got also soluble and insoluble fiber, which the difference between the two is profound. Soluble actually gathers moisture and makes you full. And the insoluble goes through the system and grabs things like damaged particles.
The body runs on nutrients. It doesn't run on medication. And Kingdom Fuel is a complete multivitamin and mineral.
Introducing OK Movie Stream, your ticket to a world of cinematic classics and wonders, right from the heart of Oklahoma and the surrounding areas.
Baby, take a walk under the moonbeams.
Dive into a world of captivating stories and extraordinary talent, all on OK Movie Stream.
You got to believe, y'all.
Choose the option that suits you best. Watch for free with commercials, binge watch your favorites for 3 days, or unlock ad-free streaming for just $10 a year. Join the OK Movie Stream community today and embark on a cinematic journey like never before.
I don't know about you, but I have to have that cup of coffee in the morning. And Kingdom Cup is mold-free, it is pesticide-free, and it is organic. It's got this flavor that is delicious. You don't even have to put cream or sweetener in it.
And it's Kingdom Cup with a K,
K.
right? So this is important. 50% of all coffee at least contains mold. And this is a key thing. That's in bean form, right? So you're going to be a little grinder. They're just a few bucks. Grind it up, put it in your maker, and make it. Why did we go with the bean form, the whole bean? Because ultimately the powder form is the one that gathers the most moisture. And that means the more potential mold development. So this is actually organic, mold-free, certified. It's got a little certificate with it. That's important because ultimately people drink coffee. It's cultural. And so we tried to meet the culture where it is and create a healthy alternative.
Today we're going to talk about a hot topic, no pun intended. What happens to your body when you do a cold plunge?
I like how you put that hot topic. I wasn't expecting that, man. I was thinking this is going to be a cold-hearted subject today. Ultimately, when you do a cold, it's really popular today, right? And
Well,
so,
it's really popular today, but interestingly enough, it was discovered like 3,500 years BC. That's a
Yeah.
long time ago.
Well, Hippocrates was a big fan of the idea of cold. And what happens is, and it makes sense, is when you go into a colder environment than your body's used to, and many times the water in these cases is somewhere between like 55 and about 69 degrees. So it's cold. It's not like sub-freezing, but it's really feels freezing. But the bottom line is your vessels constrict and all your heat sort of comes inside because it's trying to preserve that, right? And so when you get out of that, your vessels then dilate and pushes the blood immediately out. And the idea behind it is it improves healing because it would improve blood flow. And that would make a lot of sense.
It's been used for long periods of time in athletic rooms for sports injuries.
Oh, yeah. People take ice baths. I mean, that's a big thing in the NFL right now. The players do that. And
Get off the field, take an ice bath.
yeah, certainly. And way back when, and this is before the ice baths got popular, it was cold and hot treatments, back and forth, back and forth. And I remember doing that a little bit when I was used to say was an athlete, but it would help you heal up, and it makes sense, right? A lot of people that use it right now is just sort of this therapeutic thing to sort of improve health and maybe even lose some weight.
Multiple patients that we've seen in the clinic have often talked about how it improves this thing called chronic anxiety or depression. And when you think about what happens with the physiology of the ice bath is, of course, vasoconstriction happens. Everything kind of comes to a slow pulse, no pun intended, again. And once you get out of that ice bath, the body is surged with blood, oxygen, and nutrients that flow to the tissues. So here comes that healing power with a surge.
Well, we don't really think about it too much, but how about the neurotransmitter aspect of it? When you achieve something out there that you thought was hard and you did it, maybe you go work out, maybe you go for a run, there's something that we would be talking about there, dopamine, right? We get that dopamine hit, right? Ice baths do the same thing. As soon as you get out, you get that dopamine surge, and it's like a sense of achievement. So you do feel better about oneself. So from an anti-anxiety and antidepressant standpoint, that actually can be pretty good.
And it doesn't take a medication, and it doesn't really take any clinician monitoring to simply do an ice bath. Let's talk maybe a little bit about resources. Do you need to have a ice bath in your backyard in order to do a cold plunge?
No, there are some though that you can get portable that actually you can fill up and get some ice. You could do that. You can get those people live on a farm. You get one of those old feeding troughs and do it pretty easy. But ultimately, then you got to get ice, right? So you could do
Or
this
some sort of thermal monitoring device.
totally, and it doesn't really have to be a certain. I said a moment ago between 55 and 69. It doesn't have to be there to sort of create that effect. You could, for example, work your way down and go about 75 degrees, or just a cold shower. Like, don't turn it on hot. That will do the same thing, and actually probably working your way into more cold for more long is probably a good thing. So I encourage people when you're starting that just to start small, start short. And it's recommended about 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. You don't need to go like an hour. So it's a short thing that does some long-term effects positively. So you could even do a cold shower, which is not going to be 55 degrees, but it might feel like it, but you can actually get some benefits like that.
Would you recommend that somebody just put their feet in and try 10 minutes with their feet in the cold bathtub first, or just go cold plunge all the way into the shower?
No, you can try the feet first. Because ultimately, if you go up to your neck or even get submerged in it, like some people do, like every year there's these polar bear plunge kind of things, and people will go to a lake that is frozen like that, and they'll dive in and jump in it and go underwater and come back out, and they call it the polar bear plunge. And it's challenging, I remember doing that one year when I was on the police department, getting out there and jumping in that cold water, and the first thing you get is that sort of that lose your breath, yeah, like, oh my gosh, you think you're going to die, and it's really cold. So if people want to start, low grade like that, just dip your feet in a little bucket of water.
And probably somebody who's got blood pressure instabilities or blood sugar instabilities is probably somebody that wants to talk to a clinician or have some guidance before they just take the cold plunge.
Yeah, if you got heart disease or something, man, that can really shock the system. So don't just do that willy-nilly without some kind of a guidance. But as a general principle, that used as a therapy would be very good for most people. And of course, there's varying times and submersion levels and temperatures and length of time for people, but probably some of that for everybody would be a good thing.
So do you think that we should take the plunge?
Yeah, we did when we got married, didn't we? Right? There you go, man. Come on. No, I think that everybody should do that. I
So you
honestly
think it's
do.
here to stay? It's not just a fad.
I think it's here to stay because it makes sense, right? You
And
think
it's been
about-
around since 3500 BC.
Yeah.
We see it in all the universities across the country. Now it's
Yeah.
kind of come to the mainstream backyard.
When you get down to some of these older remedies, older things that we're talking about, they've been around for thousands of years. There's a reason they've stood the test of time. And that's kind of fascinating when you look at this whole idea of standing the test of time and kind of what we do. Some of these things like cold plunge have been around so long, they prove themselves worthy. So getting back to the basics of these foundational things like this are good. So consider taking the plunge, the cold plunge, and you might see that does the body good.
You don't want to miss.
Our best tips for eating out. Our Kingdom Candy with a K again. 2 flavors. We got salted
Delicious.
caramel and peanut butter. These are great. I mean, they're
kind of like a complete meal.
they're 200 calories. People want to know that all the time, and not that we're worried about calories, but these things have great ingredients. They're not sweetened with sugars. They don't have those false sugars or fake sugars, artificial
They've got
sugars.
fiber in them.
They do. It's interesting. Salted caramel crunch is our newest flavor. We'll come up with some other stuff at some point, but those can bridge the gap of that sweet tooth craving. They're sweetened with monk fruit, and that's really, if you know what that is, it's not going to raise blood sugar.
It's really only 2 grams of sugar. I refer to it as the sweet without the cheat.
Any of these things out here are designed to be money-saving, nutrition-giving, and life-enhancing, and this is a big deal. So you'll find out, like thousands of other people did, that these things will help you live healthy longer. The body's amazing at recovery, so you want to give it every chance, no matter what time it is. So in that context, no, it's certainly never too late. You're never too old to start trying to be healthy.
No matter where you are in terms of your health, that you can turn this around.
It's never too late to start a wellness program, and it's never too late to reach your healthcare goals. There's an old adage, and I'm not sure where it came from, but I really do like it. And they say the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
We just want people to hang on to hope.
We are hope dealers. And if you are not paying attention to the 4 foundational pillars of health, physical, emotional, intellectual, and spiritual, eventually it is going to catch up.
If we get all those 4 areas right, and we do it right, we see a dynamic occur in the middle called wellness, and that's where people get better. Their health is really going to return as a side effect of wellness.
Let's get real. Most emergency food is just as bad for you as any other choice in the standard American diet. And that's just sad.
We don't just need food, we need highly nutritional food.
We don't just want to survive food shortages, we are meant to thrive in adversity.
Complete your daily nutrition and have shelf-stable Kingdom Fuel as a cornerstone of your food supply.
Don't sacrifice your health or your taste buds.
Stock up on Kingdom Fuel now.
Tips to eating out.
Oh my gosh, that's a big subject right there. People struggle with that, and we've got a lot of things that can help them. So I think let's take it from the top. Can you sort of have some help eating out? Is it possible to eat healthy?
Yes, well, number one, I just tell people, be the boss. When you go to a restaurant, be the boss. No bread, avoid the extra oils, avoid the extra sugars, and avoid all the extra sugars.
So obviously we're trying to avoid, that would be a rule, right? There's one thing that I like a tip that I like to talk about with people. So when you get your menu, they give you the menu, the waiter says, here's your menu. You look at that menu, I want you, instead of looking at that as individual single meals that are put together like that and no other, look at that whole totality of those things as a buffet. Because in the back of that kitchen, there's a bunch of bins with everything in there. And what they're doing is going scoop, 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 or scoop, scoop, flop, however you want to do that. And they're putting that meal together as it says right there on the menu. So what you can do is you can say, okay, if the entree choice has, for example, grilled fish and it has mashed potatoes and corn, you say, I don't really want mashed potatoes and corn. And you look up the menu and you see grilled vegetables or you see broccoli. You say, may I have grilled vegetables or broccoli in place of the corn and mashed potatoes with this piece of grilled fish? And the waiter's going to say yes. At worst, they might say, well, there's a little upcharge, like $1 or $2 or $3. But in that case, you're actually making a better choice.
Yes. I often will look at the menu online before I go to the restaurant. That gives me the intentionality of what I'm going to order when I get there, so I'm not tempted by anything else on the menu. I've seen all of the choices. I definitely don't go in hungry.
No.
And I've looked at that menu before I get there.
Well, then that's a good one. I think leads it to another tip is not going in like starving and ravenous, because we make worse decisions typically. You can have some water. If you'll just drink some water and fill that
Big
stomach.
old glass of water?
Yeah, fill that stomach up with some water, and you go in there a little bit. You can actually see that you'll eat less if you're sipping on water slightly. I'm talking a lot, but sipping on water slightly between several bites, that's actually a good thing. Another thing that I like to do is like to tell people, when you go with a group, you sometimes have this peer pressure because you don't control what they order, but don't let them control what you order. In other words, don't
Be the first to order.
Yeah, well, be the first to order, or don't participate in someone else's misery. I mean, you have people have this shame game they play. They say, gosh, Michelle, can't you have a little fun? Come on, eat a piece of pie with me. Gosh, what's wrong with you? Well, we don't fall for that anymore, and you shouldn't either. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just choosing to make your own decision about what you put in your mouth, and there's nothing wrong with that. If somebody's trying to force you to eat something, they're probably going to force you to think something. And for a person trying to force you to do anything is all about control, and that's not really a good thing to hang around with anybody like that.
Yeah, that is true. Another good healthy tip is, the dressings. A lot of times I'll toss the lettuce or the spinach or the greens in a whole amount of dressing. Therefore, you don't know the calorie load that you're actually going to get. So you could have them put the dressing on the side.
That's easy. And you could do the old Weight Watchers trick, dip your fork in the dressing and then put it in the salad or whatever. A lot of times we tell people to do this, if you're uncertain about a dressing, you can always use the vinegar and oil, but make sure that the oil is like olive oil, because sometimes it can be other kind of oils like a canola oil or something, which is not any good. So you can actually get that on the side and actually increase some of those good healthy fats there potentially with that.
Another good tip is don't drink your calories. If you're drinking any kind of fruit juice, or you're putting sugar in your tea, or you're drinking sweet tea, that's just fast absorbed sugar. So skip the drinks that are calories, have water, and eat the calories instead. Like eat a piece of fruit instead of having fruit juice.
The stomach is the size of a fist, not the size of a beach ball, right? So everybody go like this right now. This is the size of your heart. Now remove one fist, boom, that's the size of your stomach. So what does that mean? If you want to eat less at the restaurant, and even eat better, start with a salad. And that means you're going to chew your food, because you can't just inhale a salad, you have to chew it. So that will slow down the time in which you eat, and you'll fill that fistful size up with some of this fibrous food, and it will sit there, and you'll eat less on your main meal. So I tell people, start off with some roughage like that every single time. Get yourself a salad and start with this sort of pre-meal, and that will help you not eat as much in the main meal.
I like that. The stomach doesn't have any teeth, so chew your food until you chew your food into soup. And you'll oftentimes discover some really cool new types of flavors that you wouldn't have understood as you're inhaling that food. So chew your food. Your stomach doesn't have any teeth. Digestion starts in the mouth. So as we really chew and masticate that food, it's easier on the stomach and better on the digestive processes.
A little, we do this a lot too. Sometimes we'll order a soup sometime beforehand. And I know it kind of goes somewhat, it might seem a little contraindicatory with that idea. You said don't drink your calories, but soup has some nutrients in it, and it also takes up space. So it's actually some kind of nutrients that take up that space in that belly, so you do eat less during the meal. So you can start off with a good hearty soup, like a good hearty vegetable and beef soup. We've done that many times, and that's been great. Or some sort of a vegetable soup as a general, like a broth soup. Those are good as well.
The other thing we do is we always share a meal. We look
Yeah.
at the portion size, and if it's late at night, it's often a portion for two. So we'll share that portion, and if we're going to each have a portion, we'll plan to take half home.
There was a lot of tips that we talked about here, and folks, here's the thing with this. Take all these tips. I really encourage you in this segment here to go back and write them all down. Just make yourself a list and start employing those, because that will help you navigate the waters of a menu at a restaurant, even navigate the waters in front of your peers and friends out there. So we can actually make a restaurant visit healthy.
Exploring biohacking, bioharmonizing, biosynergizing, stacking, resilience, or anti-fragility.
Start here. No gimmicks, just proven results.